Welcome back, everybody. This is quite a bit different of a view than we're used to. Normally we're at my house working on cars, fixing stuff, but today I'm bringing you guys along with me to work so I can talk about how it's been floating a 10-speed manual in the tractor trailer semi as a beginner, and to help the new guys so they know what to look forward to when they get into one of these trucks with a 10-speed. So I'm not a beginner driver. I've been driving for almost 3 years now, but I've only been in this truck for about 8 months maybe. When I started driving straight out of the school, I went right into an automatic. There was no option, there was only an automatic. So I passed my test in a manual, so I have no restrictions. I went to do FedEx ground straight out of school. They only had automatic, so that's what I got put in. I did that for 2 years, and then I started doing local, and the local contractor I'm working for now happened to have a manual. All right, so let's start with the basics. We know you got your clutch pedal. When you press your clutch pedal all the way down to the ground, it engages the clutch brake. You need that. You need to do that first before you try to put it in any gear. When you were in the school and they expected you to double clutch, you would only press the clutch down just a little bit every time you shifted. Don't do that. You don't need a double clutch. Double clutching is a waste of time, waste of your knee. You don't need to be doing this all the time. We're only going to be using the clutch to get out of first gear or whatever gear you decide to take off in, and the rest is all throttle. So then we got your shifter over here. Here's your shift pattern. This is a Eaton 10-speed, probably the one that most trucks are going to be having. Press your clutch all the way down to engage your clutch brake. Over to the left, up, that's reverse. Straight down, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Put your selector up. Where first was, that's sixth, then seventh, 8, 9, and 10. Pretty simple. The way I like to think about it is that it's a 5-speed, like a car, a 5-speed car. 5 gears low and then 5 gears high. That makes it a lot simpler for me to think about it in my head when I'm shifting. Of course, eventually you're going to get to a point where you're not going to think about it anymore, and it's just going to come natural. The more you practice, the more it's just going to come naturally to you. So when we first take off, you're going to press your clutch brake in, then you're going to put it in whatever gear. Let's say, for example, right now, this is just first. And you're going to let off the clutch, and you're just going to let off the clutch. You can give it throttle if you want, but I usually just let off the clutch to take off. Then when you're getting ready to shift into the next gear, let's say you're going from first to second, you're going to be on throttle, and as you're letting off the throttle, you're already putting a little bit of pressure on the shifter to whatever gear it is that you're trying to go into. And as you're letting off the throttle, it'll let you come out of gear. So a little bit of throttle is what's going to let it come out of gear. Same thing when you're downshifting, you want to give it a little bit of throttle to get it out of gear. So on throttle, in gear, as you're getting ready to shift, you put a little bit of pressure on whatever gear it is you're trying to go to, and as you're letting off, it'll come out of gear. You let off the throttle completely, and then you go into your next gear, and then as smooth as you can, get back on the throttle and continue on. So when you're shifting, you're going to be living around 1,000 to 15 to 1,600 RPMs. When you're upshifting, you're going to be upshifting around 14 to 1,600 RPMs. Usually I'm shifting at about 1,500 RPMs, depending on if I'm feeling like it's a little heavier or if I'm going uphill. When you're downshifting, usually I'll let it go down to like 1,000 or 1,100 RPM. you'll get out of gear and then rev it up to whatever RPMs you need, usually right back to like 1500 RPMs, and then go into gear. It doesn't really matter what RPMs, like you usually want to get down to like 1000 or 1100 before you decide that you want to downshift. But let's say you're at, I don't know, 1200, 1300 and you wanted to downshift, you just need to jump 400 RPMs. So if you're at 1300, you want to jump to like 1600 or 1700 to get it to go into gear again when you downshift. Usually I just try and stay right here because it just seems a lot simpler, and when I was learning, this is what helped me not mess up so bad. Whenever you go too high in the RPMs, you might not be able to get out of gear. Same as if you're too low, you end up having to press the clutch in a little bit to get it out of gear. Another thing that helps is remembering like the speeds at which gear you're in. So I'm normally only really using 5th gear to 10th gear, so I'm usually just remembering like between 10 to 15 miles per hour. I know I can go into 5th gear. 6th gear is 15 miles per hour. 7th gear is 25 miles per hour. 8th is 35 and 9th is 45. That helps with upshifting and downshifting, because then I know what gear I can go into if I missed a gear or if I forgot what gear I was in. So something else to think about, if you let's say you go into a gear and it feels like it didn't go in all the way, it will pop out of gear. That's happened to me a couple times when I was first learning. I mean, it's still every so often almost happens. So when you go into gear, you'll feel like it has like a couple steps where it goes all the way in when it doesn't go like perfectly smooth in. I'm not 100% sure how the inner workings of the transmission works, but it feels almost like it has 3 steps, and I'm guessing that's when the gears are meshing. So if it doesn't go in all the way, you'll feel it. It's hard to explain how many like times it needs to like fall into place, but you'll feel that it doesn't go in all the way. And if, let's say you were holding it in gear, it won't pop out of gear usually. But if you let off of it and it wasn't in all the way, it's gonna pop out and it's gonna sound horrible. It's gonna sound like something broke. But all it is that it popped out of gear. Alright, so right now I have a trailer on me. I have a loaded 53. I'm gonna go into first. And let me tug it real quick. And now we're gonna start getting moving. I'm only using the clutch. I only let off the clutch, no throttle. Now shift. That second, third, fourth, fifth. Easy peasy. You want to try and get the gears to go in as smooth as possible. I know sometimes it's not going to work out and it's going to clunk in, it's going to grind a little bit, but you want to try and go as smooth as possible. There's this video that I always think about. A bus driver, he's I want to say it's out of the country somewhere, but there's a little tiny shifter and he's just shifting with like 3 fingers like this. He's just doing this, and that's all it takes to shift this thing. You don't need a whole bunch of pressure to get it in gear. It should just be like whatever you can do with 1 finger. You should be able to shift it that way. All right guys, we're about to take off. Now you guys can see what it's like to take off from first all the way through 9th or 10th. first downshift. We're gonna slow down to like 1,000 RPMs, rev it up, put it into 1 gear down, which is 7th. Same thing, 6th, and stop. Usually when I take my turns, guys, I'll be like 5th or 6th gear. That's, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 15 miles per hour. Now we're gonna get on the freeway. Right here, we're going uphill a little bit, loaded, so I'm gonna go up a little bit higher in the RPMs, like 1,600 RPMs. That's 9th. Wow. One more gear. Get on the freeway. And you, like, guys, every gear that you do, it may not go in like perfectly smooth. I just scratched 10th gear right now. It's not a big deal. Not the end of the world if you miss a gear, scratch a gear, grind a gear, completely forget where you were at. You can figure it out again, even if you had to pull over and start all over from first. Something else that I'll do sometimes, like when I'm slowing down and I don't want to rev up to go into another gear, I can press the clutch in just a little bit, and depending on what gear you're trying to go into, it'll fall in. Like that was 3rd at around, I want to say 5 miles per hour, a little bit less. That's if you don't want to be like revving it every single time. Again, 2nd gear. I'm empty though. This is an empty 53 that I have right now, so you may not be able to take off in 2nd gear. Almost messed up right there. That's usually the gear that I always have trouble with, is 6th to 7th. No idea why. Always been an issue. Maybe there's something wrong with this transmission, but it's always been a problem since I started driving this truck. Maybe it's just me. So what I do as far as the downshifting, I mean, I'm always paying attention pretty far ahead. So if I see the light going yellow or some cars pulling out, I'll start slowing down and start downshifting. Alright, like right here. And just personally, me with this truck, I'll only downshift down to usually 7th. So in this truck, the engine brake doesn't work anymore once you go below 25 miles per hour. So, and I leave the engine brake on. I know that there's other people that don't, but I usually just leave it on because it ends up cutting out once I hit 25 miles per hour or less. that's it. All the way to 10th, and shouldn't have to do anything else from here on out. The rest of my my trip is like another 2.5 hours from here, so I'll probably, unless there's traffic, I'll probably be in 10th gear the whole time. So now I'm just gonna have to put some music on to try and stay awake, because the drive from Phoenix to Blythe is the most boring, well, almost as boring as Phoenix to Tucson. Alright guys, let's say that you're about to shift and you missed your gear, you can't get it in. You can try and give it like a quick blip on the throttle to try and get it back into that gear. You can look at your speed and see what speed you got compared to your RPMs and try and get it in that way. Or you can go back to the gear that you were in, if you remember what gear you were in. So like, maybe I could do it right here. I can go into 9th. And let's say I was trying to go into 10th and oh, well, it went in. Let's say it's not going in. And then I can go back into 9th. And then into 10th. So, something else you could try. Usually, if you're trying to go in and it didn't go in the first time, you can give it just a little bit of throttle and it'll usually fall into place. I mean, obviously it depends on what your RPMs are compared to your speed, but pretty sure once you start getting into it, you'll figure it out. Guys, so as far as downshifting uphill and downhill, I don't really have too many places where I do that. This is one of the only places, like the steepest hill that I go on, and it's going to be the same thing. You drop down, or your engine speed is going to drop down to probably close to 1,000. You're going to downshift to the next gear. I'm only going to be able to downshift one gear. I'm not that heavy, but never really encountered steep grades like that in a manual. I did in an automatic, but the automatic does everything for you, so can't really explain it since I have never really experienced it. Something else I just remembered, guys, while you're when you're driving and you're shifting, upshifting, downshifting, whatever it is, if your engine fan turns on, it'll drag your engine speed down, the RPMs, and then it'll end up causing you to grind into gear. Let's say you were doing everything perfectly, but then the fan turns on, it'll bring the engine speed down, and what you thought was gonna make it go into gear won't, and you're gonna have to give it more throttle to get it into gear. One of the things that I had a problem with when I was first driving this truck was forgetting that I had left the selector up. So when I would come to a stop, I would completely forget that the selector was up, and I'd go to put it in what I thought was either first or second gear, and it was actually 6th or 7th, and almost stalled. You know, I'd end up catching it, but something else to look out for, because that happened a lot to me. Even here, sometimes at the end of the day when I'm tired and I'm not thinking straight, I'll forget that it's up there, and realize it when I'm about to take off and just, you know, catch it and put it down and put it in the right gear right away. But aside from that, I can't really think of anything else that you guys might need to know. For the most part, you're gonna figure it out on your own. You're gonna learn your own way of doing things. You know, what I've talked about with the whole shifting and what RPMs you're supposed to be at. That's gonna be like a general thing. You're gonna learn everything your own way, and also at your own pace. Because sometimes you're gonna be in traffic and you're gonna feel like you're being rushed, and then you're gonna be trying to rush to get into gears. You're gonna mess up, and just don't worry about what's going on with everybody else. Do everything at your own pace. Alright guys, that's the end of my day. I don't really know what else I can add to this. If there's other people that are watching that have way more experience than me, because I'm sure there is, chime in the comments and let people know what I missed, because I'm pretty sure I forgot a few things. Anyways guys, that's going to be it for this one. I hope this helps out the new drivers, and hopefully the more experienced drivers continue to help out in the comments. So until next time, peace.